Welcome to this episode of the Strong Kind Podcast. This episode is with Kate Sneddon. Kate is a doctor of physical therapy. She's also someone who has managed cystic fibrosis from the time she was a little girl. We talked about ACL recovery. We talked about cystic fibrosis. We talked about New York. It was a really fun conversation. Kate's got a lot of good energy, and I hope you enjoy it. Check it out. Let me know what you thought of the podcast, and I appreciate you listening.
Oh, okay.
All right. Yeah, keep going. Phones are
So
poisoning us.
it poisons your brain. I put my phone in the lockbox,
Yeah.
and the amount of times, even I lock it up for like 20 minutes time, I go to look at it like literally 15 times. Like, oh, where's my phone? Oh, I'm like, oh my God, you've broken your brain, Kate.
Yeah.
Like, you've become addicted. You've let the meta engineers wiggle their way into your brain, and now you have to lock your phone in a box. Like, come on.
Yeah, we have to literally put it in a cookie jar that has a timer. I mean, yeah, and like the reality of it is that I stopped using that thing because I knew like I was addicted. I stopped using that thing is because like I'm not gonna leave it in there for an hour. Like I don't want to do that, right? It's really bad. I mean, I think I almost want to start like talking about business. I almost want to start a business that's like marketing on Instagram for phone addiction. Like, hey, you're on your phone too much. How do we break this cycle, right? But I don't know how well that would go. So,
Well, I have no idea. I will be the first person to sign up because I haven't figured it out yet. I'm getting better. But I
yeah.
definitely notice like it's almost like anxiety producing. Like I need to check it, I need to
Oh,
look and like I'm like, "Oh my God, what happened to me?" I used to just be able to frolic, go pick flowers, find bugs, and now I'm like I need to scroll and like I'm not looking at anything I care about.
no.
It's just the act of scrolling is the little dopamine molecules in my brain going off, which is, we're working on it.
Are you in New York? Like, where are you at? Where are you located?
I am in New York.
Like, are
I
you from
live,
there?
yes, I grew
Okay.
up on Long Island.
Okay.
I currently live in Rockaway Beach, which is like technically New York City, although I would never like willingly admit that I like live in New York City. It's like a beach town though.
Okay.
So depending on if you look towards the beach, you're like, I'm in a beach town. Then you turn around and there's like all the like higher rises, and then you're like, okay, I'm in New York City.
Yeah.
Um,
So I've never been to New York. So like, and my I want to really bad just because like the food. I just literally want to just go around and like
you want
eat.
to go get a dirty water dog, a
I don't
hot
know what it
dog
is.
at the at the corner?
What is that? That's not what I'm talking about. Is that like is that literally what they call them? Is dirty water dogs? Because they're
That's what
just
I call them. I
yeah,
don't. I guess the if you're selling hot dogs, you probably don't call them that.
probably
But
not.
as
But
someone that's like not a enthusiast, I would call them that. I actually don't even eat hot dogs in general. I have like a it's just like a creepy tube meat, not my thing. Not to judge anyone that does, but not really for me. But
what?
anyway, so you want to come to New York City so you could try that or expand.
Not dirty water dogs. Just like literally like there like there's everything. Like I mean, it's such a seems. I mean, my perception is I just want to be like Will Ferrell and Elf and like run around, and like say, "Oh, the world's greatest cup of coffee," right? Like or but
I can 100% see that from you, like running around New York City. I'm hailing a cab, and like everyone's cursing you out, and you're just
I
so
would
happy.
probably annoy my wife a ton just because I like doing that. But I mean, like, okay, so like, what's your favorite? Do you have like a favorite like New York City like specialty food or something like that?
Well, so the thing is, I'm from Long Island.
Okay,
Like I grew up in Long Island,
I have no
which is
conception of like
really
any of this.
it's where all the Italian Americans went. So my like take on good food is like Italian food.
Okay,
But I coined my like I like to describe myself as like really like a trash can because I like everything. I will eat everything. There's nothing I will pretty much say no to besides hot dogs.
yeah, you just said hot dogs,
Um,
which are a
so
trash
really like
can. That's a trash can meat right there, and you just
that
said
is
no.
I think the cool thing about being from here and living here is like you have access to so many different types of food
Yeah,
at any time and it's like all good and
yeah,
like
yeah.
real.
Um, what is like your favorite thing to do? Like, I mean, I have no concept of like how big New York is. Like, I mean, I also know it's like relatively like condensed, but it's also a giant city with tons of people. But like, what do you like to do? Like, ideal weekend in New York City. What does that look for you?
But I don't, so I stay away from the city when I
Okay.
can.
All
So
right.
like I go the opposite direction. Like
Okay.
I'll go out to Long Island where there's like trees and like
Okay.
grass to touch. But like being in from a beach town, like in the summer, I'll go to my boyfriend's from Breezy Point, which is like this little real beach town where you see the Manhattan skyline. So like
Hmm.
they actually don't have cars there. Like you park in a parking lot and then it's all sidewalks. So like in the summer, you're riding your bike around, you're going swimming, fishing, more active stuff.
Yeah.
If I go into the city, it's like for a purpose and then I come back.
Okay.
That's just me personally. I don't like the like bus breath of aromas. There's a lot of garbage smells.
Oh yeah. A lot
Which
of
could
people.
be something that you like when you go, but it's personally not my favorite. So I
Gotcha.
like more like get out onto the island active stuff.
Okay. All right. All right. Is the water warm in the summer? Like, is it like swim? Is it like, does it feel good to swim in or not so
Steve,
much?
it's the Atlantic Ocean. Have you ever been in the ocean?
Yeah, but I mean, does it get like relatively warm? I've been in like the Caribbean Ocean and in like California Ocean, but
Where
like,
are you? You live in Iowa,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I'm in the Midwest.
There's no like water, like no
You,
ocean.
not,
There's
not
just
in
in the
Iowa.
middle.
Have you seen a map of the United
I
States?
haven't looked at a map in 12 years.
Yeah.
I'm proud of that.
We have the dirty Mississippi, which I grew up next to the Mississippi River, and that was dirty, but we'd go like swimming in it and stuff like that. We'd go boating on it, and that's relatively warm in the summer. But yeah, like I mean, I think coast like I've been in the Atlantic, like in Florida, and it's like warm there, but you go north, and I don't know, like is it cooler? I don't like you
Okay, the answer, short answer, yes, the water is cold.
yes,
There's like a period, August, September, where it's not as cold. And I would say that's when it's enjoyable, but you're never like floating in the Caribbean.
yeah, gotcha.
Like you dip into the water for character development,
Okay,
any other time besides those times.
okay, I gotcha. So, what got you into crew?
So we've literally kind of talked about this. I just like to do random stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was going to play lacrosse in college. I was going to play, and then I was like, I don't really want to go to the schools I could get into because I'm like, I wasn't really good at lacrosse. I was like D3 and below. Um, and so when I went to University of Delaware, I wanted to do crew. Well, I wanted to do club soccer because I had never done crew. I had no idea. I had never held an oar in my life. And then the coach was at like the club soccer or the club sports fair, and
Hmm.
it was his first year as coach for University of Delaware. So he hadn't recruited freshmen really, besides like a couple. So
Hmm.
he was trying to like amass people to try out. And so one of my friends started talking to him and they convinced me to do it. And I was like, well, what is it? And I was like, it's like preppy, right? Like it's like a preppy thing to do. And my friend was like, I don't know. And then I was like, I'm sold. That's all I need to know. So I went to the tryout. Um, they put us in like the tank where I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like it's basically a tub,
Hmm.
and then there's like oars, and then on each side there's like two additional tubs that are like filled with water, and like you get to like go through the motions without being in a boat. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then I just did it for 4 years after that. But I was definitely like I was a personality hire for sure. Like they didn't want me on the team for my crew skills, like 100%. Like even the coach, like after my freshman year, he was like, because they cut people, from the varsity team because it was D1. They cut people after like the first year if you don't have a certain skill level. He's like, you're a glue person, Kate. We need you around. And I was like, so you're saying you're keeping me for my personality? And he's like, yeah, kind of. But
Hey,
culture, you need culture. So that's how I got into it. And I loved it. And I loved the competition of it. But I will say I'm like, at this point, happily retired. Like I'm down to do other things now. It wasn't my like love.
Would you ever go like scull on your own? Like, is that what that's called? Like just a single
Yeah,
boat? Is that
I would.
schooling? Yeah, like it's like
Yeah, I mean, crew used to be torture, right? Like,
yeah,
and it kind of, if you're doing it correctly, it freaking sucks. It hurts.
yeah,
It's just basically doing like a loaded squat over and over and over again. It makes
yeah,
your legs really strong,
yeah.
which is why I still occasionally hop on the erg. But other than that, like, it's it's not enjoyable, but I feel like sculling with the right intention
Yeah.
could be more like a paddle where you're looking at birds and nature. So like that I would be into. But as far as like competing again, not crew wise anyway for
You're not.
me.
I mean, you said you're like 5'1". Like you're not very big. I thought like they wanted like bigger people. I mean,
Oh, they do. That's why I'm really a personality hire. My first 2 years I was a rower,
yeah,
and then I was switched to coxswain, which is like the one that steers, calls plays, talks smack about the other boats around you, has like a microphone like Britney Spears, like circa 2000.
yeah.
So that I excelled at.
So yeah, I've never really understood what that. So like that because that person. Do you still have to work out? Like, do you still work out and row and stuff, or are you just
Not really.
you just
Not
kind of
really.
you just kind of become like the organizer and like the
They
mic?
want you to essentially become a skeleton so that you don't weigh anymore,
Yeah.
so that you're not like weighing the boat down. But you have to be like minimum 110, or otherwise they put sandbags in the boat to make it heavier.
Okay.
So like you don't have to be a real skeleton.
Gotcha. I mean, you're not a very big person, so I've established that, but like I'm like, all right, this makes sense that that would be your job. So, um, like, and it's funny because I think over the internet, like you have really no perception. Like me and you have talked, and we've been like on Zooms and stuff. Like you have really no perception of like how like big people are or how small they are. Like I don't know, I just didn't picture you as like 5'1". Like I was like maybe 5'4". Like I don't, but yeah,
I have a tall presence, I
yeah,
believe.
that's good. Yeah. You have I think that's one of the things I think like you just have good juju. Like what do you think like do you kind of believe in like I mean I do 100%. I think you should. Like energy, the energy you give is the energy you get. Like do you believe in that type of stuff?
100%. And
Okay.
like I've seen it in my own life. Like when my energy is not good, people don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
But two, like it's just less opportunities come your way, and just less good things happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's necessarily like vibes, but like it does help to speak about it that way. Cause then I feel like it's like controllable versus like, oh, your personality sucks. There's nothing you could do about it. No one likes you. You
Well,
know,
I
just
mean,
choose your vibe check.
I think vibe check, yeah. I mean we do have like mirror neurons, right? Like those are literally like how you respond to the environment you're in and like, feeling other people and I think more other people like are just conditioned to be more sensitive to other people in both good and bad ways. Like I do think like there's a lot of people out there like misery the reason misery loves company is like a saying is because like people bring other people down to their level of energy, right? And I think the more I've interacted with humans, it's just like, yeah, you want like, I mean, when I was working in the hospital, it's like there was just people who were like, you're a virus. Like when you're on this, like, because it would be like in wings, and you're like, when you're in this wing, like the workday sucks, right? And so you just like are trying to get away from that person, and it's sad to say, and you can have some influence on it, but also those people are typically like not very easily influenced, right? So
Hmm.
where do you think do you have siblings?
I do. I have an older sister and a younger sister.
To the middle of
I'm the
middle
middle
sister?
child. Yeah.
Do you do you think that is a contributor to your vibes or like are you a
I
stereotypical?
don't want to say yes. I don't want to say yes to that question, but the answer is probably.
Yeah.
Like
Let's
middle children have a certain reputation of being, and I think I definitely fit that. You know, my older sister's very quiet. She's very like reserved, responsible,
yeah.
respectful. And then so growing up, I needed to be the opposite of that. And I think I succeeded. But I've mellowed out a bit.
What was your younger sister like?
Very she's more similar to me personality wise, just not as like I would say outgoing, but we're very similar in like the way we think and stuff. But I honestly, my older sister's 15 months older than me. My younger sister is 4 years younger.
Mm,
We were all very close, and like
yeah.
I think girls get a bad rap, like, oh, three girls. Like we all got along, and like obviously there's like some fights in the morning, but I don't think that it was anything more than you would have if it was boys too. I don't know,
Yeah.
but that's I never had brothers, so I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I was the youngest of three boys, and I mean, we got like my two older brothers are only like they're like 17 months, is that what you said? Mine are like 15 months apart. Like so they're pretty close. So they like there was more differentiation of like they wanted to have like their own and identities like as they got, older. And they became kind of different, but like we still like got along. Like there was fights between them. But I was also like 5 years younger than them, so I just like by the time they were done with high school, it was like my house, and I was like an only child, which was pretty fun actually. Um, so what made you like go to like physical therapy school, or what made you interested in, helping people rehabilitate or get stronger, get healthier? What was that? What led you to that?
I think there's like two answers. Like my first answer is I always knew I wanted to do something medical.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know exactly what. And I was like a bio major, and I was going through the schooling, and I was like, Orgo really sucks. And then I like really thought about it. I was like, do I want to spend the rest of my good years in school? And I was like, no, I like myself. I'm not doing that. So I was like, well, okay, what else can I do? And I had never really been hurt. So I hadn't been like exposed to physical therapy. Like I had a couple of friends that had had ACL tears, and like I knew it was a thing. But like other than that, I really had like no idea what to expect. So then I had a couple of friends on my team that were exercise science majors, and I started talking to them about it. And I was like, I like exercise. I like science. Like I'm a big nerd. So let me like check it out. And then I talked to the guidance counselor, or I don't know what they're called in college,
Like
but
just like a
I
counselor,
could
yeah.
counselor.
Advisor.
Um
That's what they're called. Like,
advisor, yes.
yeah.
I was like, oh, I can change my major and still graduate on time. I'm gonna do it and figure out if this is right for me later. So I made the switch, and then I went and I started shadowing a local PT.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, I love this is my thing. I get to work a room, I get to bop around, talk to everybody, make people laugh, have some fun. And like that was really how I made my decision. And I was like, having the title of doctor is cool.
Yeah.
Um, and it kind of was like a, one, like I thought it would be fun for me just to do that career.
Yeah.
And then two, I was like, now that I started to look more into it, I was like, oh, there's actually a lot of things I could do to help my health that I like wasn't aware of, because
Yeah.
I have cystic fibrosis. And one of the big things that I had gone through so much when I was young was when I get sick, I have to work my way back from an exacerbation. And it was something I had done so many times. And I was like, why didn't I ever have any training in this? Like, why isn't there like a coach that helps people through that? So I was kind of like, I wanted it to treat it like, oh, I'm going to learn some stuff to help myself too, which I just thought could be like interesting, you know? And as far as like my health at the time, like when I was making that decision, I wasn't very healthy. I was actually doing pretty bad. So I was
Mm.
like, I honestly don't think I would be able to study as much as I would need to go through med school,
Mhm.
and like balance my health. So that was like a big factor too to deciding like what route to take. And then I was kind of like a just throw on the dartboard and land somewhere, and it kind of worked out. I would say it definitely worked out.
Yeah, I think I love that you use work a room. Like I can work a room in this and like I mean and that's the other thing I think when I was like exposed to like physical therapists, it's like, well, first exposed to them, it's like, well, this is cool. Like even though like the sports training I was getting like when I was like in seventh or eighth grade, like when I'm like I realize now it's like, dang, this could have been a lot better, but I still didn't know, right? And it was still I liked them, and they were like challenging me to some degree, even though it was like single leg stance on a Basu ball type stuff, which at that time was probably like the norm, right?
Elite.
Yeah, this is dope, right? Whereas like really if they would have just like helped me squat like 200 pounds, I probably would have been a way better athlete, right? But no, I think it's I also think like there's a giant tendency for us to pursue things that like they help us. Like I went to physical therapy school after being like a personal trainer because it's like, oh, I want to learn to not get injured, right? Which is another thing. It's like where I want to learn to like get stronger. I thought like my ankle mobility was going to just be cured by like or improved by just like manual mobilization, and then I like got to that day and I'm like, well, this is bull crap because like it didn't do anything, right? And so like and like honestly like doctors people go to med school because like their status or they like want to figure out their own stuff. Nurses, they want to they want to fix other people because they don't know how to fix their own stuff, or it's just like how are we rewarded? So what like so now you're fast forward a few years, like what is it about ACL care that you think well that like you want to do better than the current state? Like what are you actively trying to improve? But like also like why does that injury so like meaningful for you to help solve?
Hmm. I think originally when I was like getting into it, I didn't even realize that the problems were as big as they are. I was just fascinated by it. Like I was fascinated with the journey, and like some of it I can't even articulate like why it struck my interest so much. I think, there are some parallels to like my own experiences, but like at a base level, I was like, this shit is interesting and I like it. And, I like solving this type of problem. So then the more I worked with those type of clients, I realized that one, their journey was very similar to mine, at least what they were going through mentally. Like it's a very long term journey.
Yeah.
And like for me, I have a chronic disease and I've gone through periods that have been like a little bit more intense rehab wise and recovery wise. And I think all those dark emotions and all of the struggles that I experienced, I saw a lot of myself in what they were going through, where, you know, although the etiology is a little bit different, like I was like, I know what that person has gone through. And I feel like, I want to support them through it, even if I don't fully know how to help in every single way just yet. And then, as I started going through different jobs, I worked at this like sports specific place first that I saw really high volume of ACLs. Then I worked at this like mom and pop place that it was like couldn't be more different worlds. And I was like learning more about the literature, watching, people in our profession really raise the bar. And I was thinking back and I was like, what I was doing sucked. Like because I was just doing what I was told.
Yeah.
We didn't do any open chain knee extensions, which if someone's not familiar with ACL, whatever, like actually strengthening your quad, just following like a protocol blindly, and just like so looking back, kind of confronting, well, like why were the re-tear rates so high? Like I see some very obvious things. And we worked with like professional athletes too. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like just like neighborhood kids. So I'm like, one, this system is like not really good. The insurance system, people don't get enough care. It's not long term enough.
Yeah.
And then the actual care I had been administering fell short. And like I could say like, oh, like give myself excuses as to why that was happening, but like now that I know what's better, I'm going to create something that embodies that, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do with the Helios ACL project. And we're moving towards there, but there's still so much we don't know and so much research that's coming out, and other ways that I hope to eventually be able to support people emotionally and like really help it be as comprehensive as possible. And it's just always a challenge to keep doing better. And it's exciting that I don't know the end destination to me.
That's
Exciting that it gets to keep evolving.
yeah. I think that's like the thing. Is like what I remember somebody like I had like an ACL like post-op and like I had recently read like it's okay, to do like long arc quads. And somebody else in the clinic was saw me like doing long arc, like no weight, like just range of motion, like 2 weeks out. And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. You shouldn't be doing long arc quads. And I'm like, if this causes the ACL that they just put in to re-tear, like we got a serious problem because this is like literally like no load. They're just working range of motion, right?
Like, what is it made of glass?
Yeah,
Like,
like I mean, at some point we have to like start to stress this, appropriately. Like that's literally how the human body works. But I think people are just so afraid, and also like, man, there was this bad, like one of my clients who's been with me for a really long time. I saw her in the clinic, and she didn't even get in the PT for 3 weeks post-op, and they didn't give her anything.
it's so
Like,
crazy.
and it's like she was so stiff and so like, and she had been in a brace and like, but she wasn't turned like completely straight, throughout that time. It was uncomfortable, like, and it was just so much of a uphill slog. And it was just, gosh, what are we doing? So when it comes to like, what are the things that you're really trying to address that were your early stage Kate like was like just didn't even have a concept of? What are you trying to do differently?
There's a lot of like actual physical things that I'm trying to do better. As far as like giving them more ownership over their journey, like that is something that I think I completely was like, I will be the one that saves you. I will be the one that teaches you what to do. And now I've completely like flip flopped on that, where it's like, yeah, I'm going to guide you. I'm going to support you as much as you need. But like the more you take ownership over your health and this journey, the better you're going to be in the long term. So it's like kind of dropping that like savior complex that I think PT school
We
and
we all have, yeah.
whatever kind of gives you. Um, and then one just like there's so many late stage things that like I want to post about and I want to like sing about, but it's like overall when you look at like the treatment ACLers get, like the beginning, like it's so bad. So like trying to even just like teach people how to get their range of motion back
Yeah.
is like across the board like the most missed thing, because like if you look at
Can
people that come into my program,
there's just
like
there's a content idea blowing through my mind. It's like you should post like the beginning of like reels, like if you want to get here, like, and maybe you already do this. I do watch your content and I follow you, but like if you want to get here and it's like people doing really cool shit, like then it's like you got to go here, and like that's the beginning of the like literally like mastering the beginning. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there because I don't want to miss a
all
opportunity.
right, I'll jotting it down, we can't let content slip by us.
No, because it's
um
true though, because it's like what people like, and this is one of the big things. Sorry to interrupt you again, but like the you focus on like people are returning to sport in 7 months or 6 months, and you're like, no, that's dumb, right? And we know that it's dumb, but like surgeons will basically be like, yeah, we'll get you back faster. And it's like the point is not to get back fast. The point is to get back capable so that you don't re-tear, right? And that
yeah,
requires like criteria and time, right? And that's the thing that the layperson doesn't get, right?
there's so much like internet lore and just wrong stuff surgeons and physical therapists say that like I'm fighting against. And I feel like it's like, yes, I want to like progress where ACL rehab goes. Like I want to be incorporating VR glasses so we can train the sensory motor system, but it's like we're not even getting the bare bones stuff right. So why are we even talking about that? And like it's cool to be forward facing, but it's like we got to fix the machine that's here to the best of our ability before we can even start to worry about that. And like, I feel like that's where we are right now. And like, I hope that in a year or 2 years, I come back on this podcast and I'm like, everything is great. Everyone's doing awesome. Now we can look at where we need to go from here. But it's like, we just need to get the basics right now. Like, I have a bunch of people that I would term like knee rescue cases where, some people come to me before they're in that situation, but I have like a bigger than I should bucket of like knee rescue cases where we're saying like, "Oh my god, your knee looks not so good, and how are we going to fix this?" And if you don't get the first 12 weeks right, I'll even make it small, like first 8 weeks right, it's going to take us 6 to 7 months to fix that. And like that's really what what needs to be improved on all of ACL care. And then we can start talking about like how do we build comprehensive strength programs where people become more robust athletes and, are less injury prone. You know, that's a conversation that I love to have because it's so complex. There's so much nuance. Like, what does return to sport even really mean versus like what it should mean, and what
Yeah.
do people like going through that process think it means? Because there's so much that we need to fix that I don't even know how to answer that question without going on like 8 different tangents.
Well, go on the next tangent. Like, so because it's like, I mean, people, this is like the human condition is like skipping over the basics when like there's complexity or like the thing we want, right, is down the road. But I think I would argue too that even like what people perceive as like high level, like I don't really think there is an advanced strength and conditioning in so much as it's mostly like load, good exercise selection, and like meeting somebody where they're at. But like there's like people who think there's advanced techniques and XYZ. But like when it's all right, so you do have somebody that like they do okay in those early stages, right? Like what does then like later stage rehab look for them? Like let's just say like it's a soccer player, right? Like what does late stage rehab look for somebody like that? And what are the criteria and the time that they should be like, yeah, like talk to me as if I'm a 22-year-old soccer player that wants to get back to playing soccer competitively. And I've got full extension, I'm returning to run, like it's going okay. Like what should the next like 6 months look like?
Okay, I think that's a fantastic question. So, starting, I don't really go by time since surgery, besides to guide like a couple of principles, meaning like if you're not before the 9 month mark, I don't usually like people to go back to sports. There's a bunch of statistics around that as being like an important point in the rehab and recovery process. But let's say you started running and you're like heading into that point. I think, in general, like workouts are going to get heavier. We're going to be trying to load you 2 to 3 times a week, and we're going to be doing stuff that's relevant for your sport in both the gym and outside of the gym. So like as you go through what a true return to sport recovery phase should be, like you should be starting to get on the field, doing sprints, going through like a sprint progression so that we're building back your lower extremity power in positions that are going to be relevant for your sport. And like I know that's like a little bit vague because it does depend on like the human being in front of you, but I think that the biggest misstep is like once someone works up to contact play, like you're still in rehab mode, right? That first season is still rehab mode, in my opinion, where we're still building back, your peak performance. And that means like getting your power back in your leg, not just, and your whole body, and making sure you actually can use it. We're problem solving through some of those feelings that you might be feeling when you're actually playing. And, I think that in terms of the strength and conditioning piece, like in the beginning, let's say it's like 80-20, where it's like 80% in the gym, 20% on the field. And then we build up to a place where it's like 50-50. And I think that, maybe the numbers change a little bit as you go through season, but that's always going to be a chunk of time is that you are continuing your gym stuff. So that way we're not seeing regressions in strength, because that's a big problem when people go back to sport fully. If they stop lifting, your muscles are most likely going to get a little bit weaker, even though you're using them, right? But for some reason, and, it most likely is because you're compensating out of using your knee. If you don't do the strength and conditioning, then we see, that strength go down if we retest it like 3 4 months later. And that just puts you at risk of re-injury again. So it's like you work so hard in your rehab. Why are you gonna like throw it all away? We got to do some maintenance, and maybe not even just maintenance, get a little bit stronger in season as you go along.
No, and like it's just so individualized too to like the person. Like cuz somebody comes to you and they were training before, like I mean, okay, so this is a good question before I go there. Like why why are tear rates? I'm gonna ask you, like, why are they so high? Like, why are people tearing their ACL? Like, is this something that happened before and which we weren't as aware of it, or are people like stronger and faster than they've ever been in their tissue? Like, the like ligamentous adaptation is a different animal than muscular adaptation, right? Like, what do
Mhm.
you think? What is your hypothesis on why people are tearing their ACL? Is it just more people playing sports? Is it the turf? What do you think?
Oh my God, this is so multifactorial. So let's go through some of it. But before we go into like the details, I saw a meme the other day, and it was like, I never heard an ACL do a good thing. And it was just because the only time you hear about the ACL is when something bad happens.
Yeah.
And our ACLs are a very important structure in our knee. They convey a lot of neurological information to and from our brain. So I think that, there's some things we can control, and there's some things that we can't, and some things we don't know. So I think it's most important to talk about things we can control, because you could actually do something about them.
Hmm.
So like early sports specialization and this like nonstop, highly competitive year-round activity that young kids are doing through their, middle school, high school, even starts even younger now.
Yeah, it's pretty
Competitive
wild.
pee-wee soccer and baseball. Do they televise? Like, it's like in elementary school. I forget what it's called, baseball something, whatever. It's like,
Football?
yeah, maybe I don't even know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So getting kids into one sport and specializing is the best way to make sure you're prone for injuries for your lifetime.
Oh yeah.
And
The
that's
best
probably
way, the best way to prime yourself for injuries.
the best way and most efficient way to
Yeah.
make sure you get injured is play one sport year round and don't give yourself rest and don't do anything else.
Yeah.
So like a lack of movement variability and high competitive or
Yeah.
participation in highly competitive sports year round. That would be one thing. When it comes to like women, I think, and even maybe some like younger male teams, like not having strength being a piece of their training,
Hmm.
that's something that would put people at more risk for injury, or increase the rates across the board. Um, and I think that, there is some stuff like biologically, women do have a higher incidence. Some of that is either the way our bones are shaped, some of it may be hormonal, but like it's a very small piece.
Yeah.
And the strength piece is way bigger. So
Yeah.
like that's what I want people to really focus on. And like for me, the research that's coming out, there's so much good stuff. I think the missing link is like sensory motor planning and motor errors, which to me is like why so many high level athletes get injured. Like you have NFL players, dropping like flies here. And, they've got to have they have got to have good strength and
They're
conditioning.
strength. The
They're
so
got to be strong.
they're
So like,
strong and they're athletic. What do you like? Let's talk about the sensory motor stuff, because like I want you to like just tell me more of what you think about it. But like the best explanation that ever like made sense to me is like you get hurt when you get fooled, right? So what's happening like in your brain is like a predictive machine, right? So like say somebody's running down the sideline, right? And they like see somebody coming and they like make a cut, like, and their foot like was like where they think they're gonna cut, where they actually cut was like an inch apart, right? And like your brain's basically like controlling that movement so fast. But if you have a misstep when you're focusing on somebody gonna come hit you, like the ligamentous stability like basically can't contain the muscular force that's being produced around the joint, right? Like that was like when somebody explained that to me, like, oh, they got fooled. It like made some amount of sense, right? So tell me more. Is that tracking with what your understanding of it is? And tell me more about what
yeah,
you think.
I mean, there's people that are so much smarter than me that can probably articulate this a little bit better, because I
This
just
is how you
look
get
at
good at
what
it. This is how you get good
look
at it.
at smart people say, and then I try to make sense of it. So our just to like go a little sciencey here, right? Like we have our sensory and our motor cortex, and then combined with our cerebellum, they're nonstop trying to calculate, um, are we moving the way we expect to, and what's our next move from here, essentially. The ACL has a very large role in this system in sending information to the brain so that the brain can make decisions. So we don't know why sensory motor errors happen. They could happen in some percentage of people, like, one in every 100,000 movements. When you go to sit in a chair and you kerplunk, and you're like, oh, I thought the chair was in a different spot. It's just a higher stakes situation of that.
Yep.
So, for people that are high level athletes and on the field, you know, we don't know why sometimes it occurs, but there is a sensory mismatch which causes your body to use a movement pattern that maybe is not so good. And this is non-contact injuries
Yeah.
specifically. And force exceeds the tensile load that the ACL can handle. And the ACL is the victim of this brain situation. Now, like, what the research is saying is that, and it's even supported in like not MRIs, but if you look at functional MRIs
Mhm.
of people doing stuff, it does seem to be that there's some miscommunication that happens all the time,
Yeah.
or it's less efficient. So, could we identify people who are at risk and have them train a different way? Maybe. This is like the imagination machine, though. Like, I don't know if that's really plausible. But we can even see a difference in proprioception between people that do get injured on their healthy side, like doing like a sit to stand, do like a chair or something, in
Mhm.
terms of like their stability. So there is something to be said. Like, there is something underlying going on here, but once again, it's like we don't know enough to control for that.
Yeah.
So it's like we might as well have rock solid strength and conditioning, not overload people,
Yeah.
not push them to the point of neurological fatigue 24/7.
Yeah.
And that would be a way more tactful and useful conversation. Yeah.
Like it goes back to this. No, but I mean, there's that one paper that like looked at injury rates, and it was like the women's soccer. I don't remember. I can't. It was like a women's soccer team, and like they got injured more like around they were collegiate athletes, and they got injured more like around times where they were having school like testing and stuff, or after they like tracked them for a whole season, and like if they were having like relationship troubles or something like that. And then yeah, like there's a lot of things we're not going to be able to say like there's a definitive answer, but like if you look at the amount of time people are playing their sports anymore, like just think about like the like fatigue that builds up in people, right? That like is gonna have an effect on coordination, your ability like late in a game or XYZ, especially when it comes to non-contact stuff, right? Like just making a little bit of a movement, quote unquote, error, right? So it's super interesting. It's like stuff that like maybe we'll figure out more and more, but like it still comes back to being stronger is better, being conditioned is better, not playing, being able to I know what I'm gonna send you for a book. I just figured that out. But like playing multiple sports growing up and
Noted.
having movement options, right, is really good for people. Um,
I think
y-
this is something you always say. Like, you're an organism. Like, you
yeah,
gotta let yourself amoeba a little bit, you know? And I
yeah,
think we've gotten to this place where everything is, in terms of like sports and how we structure things, everything is so go all the time. Like, at some point, the organism, the human being,
yeah,
is going to suffer from that, whether it be, manifest itself in anxiety or, an ACL tear. It's
yeah. It's just I this is one of the concepts that like has changed. It's helped me like the monkey mind really just cares about your survival, right? And so how certain problems manifest, like it's probably just in like accordance to like what you're doing. Like if you're playing sports, it's like your ACL tears because at some point like there was this like I hate to use like the straw that broke the camel's back, but like that's where the system started to protect you by like hurting you, right, or allowing you to be hurt. And it's not like that simple, right? But we really are more like a plant than a car. And like just because a plant has a black like dot on one leaf doesn't mean that that leaf was jacked up. It means like the plant itself is not like in its most high state of health. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it's like just threats to the system. And if your system is all about playing basketball, like where the threats gonna come? Like your knees, you know, your hips, like these joints that are using a lot, like they're having to do a lot of work, right? So that takes us to a good segue because you have cystic fibrosis, right? And your lungs are the thing that you have to probably maintain, like do a good job maintaining. Like, so explain to me like your cystic fibrosis journey. Were you diagnosed really early? Um, like tell me more about what that's been like for you.
Yeah. This is my black spot on my leaf.
Yeah,
So I was born in 94, which was kind of like the end of the dark ages for cystic fibrosis. So at the time, newborn screening didn't screen people for cystic fibrosis. That didn't start till 96. So I wasn't diagnosed until I was 2.5 years, 2 years and 2 months. My parents had lost a child between me and my sister. That child had cystic fibrosis. So I was I was 20 pounds when I was 2 years old, which I don't know if you know anything about the expected
not big
weight
enough.
a 2 year old should be, but 20 pounds is real light. I actually looked like, like you see those like ads, like, please donate, there's starving children in this place. And they have that like big head and the belly like this.
Yeah,
That was exactly what I looked like, but like a cute version, but like that was what I looked like. So my mom had been advocating for me, like something's wrong with her. Like she eats a lot and she's not gaining any weight. And they really gaslit her until, the sister between me and my other sister passed away. And
oh my gosh.
my mom, this is back when they had like, you couldn't even really Google stuff. Like I think she like
Yeah,
looked it up in a book. Like, this is what Kate has. I
yeah,
know it.
yeah,
And so I got tested and bada bing, bada boom, had cystic fibrosis. So I think I I have to just give my mom so much credit for, my health and who I am, because she really from day one was like, no excuses. And like that means you're going to do your medication, you're going to do what it takes to take care of you. And then I think the biggest thing she did that helped me to succeed was like, it never was that like, he can't do that because she has CF. It's like, oh, she's gonna do everything that the other kids are doing if she wants to. And now I think so my older sister was a year older than me and she started playing like little league soccer. So my mom, I wanted to play it so bad that my mom lied about my birthday so I could start playing it earlier. Cause like that was just the like kid I was. Like I wanted to run around and
yeah,
chase stuff. So I think that really like starting that movement early on really contributed to like why I did well, combined with like being militant about my medications
yeah,
and like just a little bit of luck, that I didn't get a bug that I couldn't handle,
yeah,
um, was why I was like pretty successful. And honestly, like I went on, let's say, my lungs weren't really bad until I started to get older. I think it was just because I ran around so much like a psycho.
hmm,
And we did the vest. So the vest is like this inflatable thing.
yeah,
And there's tubes that go in it and inflates and it like shakes you up like this. So like I would like bring it in as my like show and tell. And like the kids were like, oh my God, it's so cool. I'm like, I know, I'm so cool. Like I have my vest. So it helped me to have like a positive mind
relationship.
frame around needing to do treatments. And
Yeah,
like it was like brushing your teeth in the morning, and integrating it into my life like that, I think was really like paramount in being able to do stuff and be a normal kid.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I think that as I got older, my lungs started to become more of a problem. I think I got my first PICC line, which is a peripherally inserted central catheter that goes in your arm into your heart. I got my first one of those when I was like in middle school. And, up until that point, I didn't feel like I really belonged to the CF community. Like, and I don't know how to phrase this. Like, I felt guilty that I was okay.
yeah,
Like I still had to do stuff every day, but like more or less, like you would never know. Like I was still like a little stud, little soccer player, you
hmm,
know, And then as I got older, the lungs became more of a problem where, kind of getting sicker and sicker up to the point. Let's see, my first real issue what probably wasn't until college, honestly. Um and like if you have questions or comments, I could slow down, but I'm kind of jumping
You're giving me
across
the
the
overarching
timeline here.
story. So like what do you so my niece is, that you're like, my niece has cystic fibrosis, and she's like, she was early detected. She was detected at like 2 weeks old, like her first
Hmm.
checkup, right? And like what? So just explain, briefly, like what starts to happen, why the lungs start to have mucus build up, how you have to do treatments, like what is that like? Talk talk
Yeah.
talk the
So
viewers, talk the audience through this.
so a little science lesson here. So your CFTR gene, or I think I might be I'm falling out of touch with my spiel here since I'm doing better. But there's ion channels in all your epithelium cells, which is your skin. It lines like any like tubes in your body. It lines the surface of your lungs. The little, I don't know, remember the name of the tube, but from the pancreas to the small intestine, like
Yeah.
that's all epithelial cells. So with cystic fibrosis, there is different mutations, but for the mutation I have, there's a little gate that's supposed to be on the surface of your cells that lets out chloride ions and salt ions in. I don't remember which way it goes, but whatever. One goes in, one goes out. And for me, the protein that is that gate is misshapen and it doesn't get transcribed to be put into the cell wall. So it's floating in the wrong spot. Now, I have the Delta 508 mutation, which I think your niece has
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So CF is recessive. So you could have two different mutations from your parents. I happen to have the same one, which makes it technically the most severe mutation because you have the most systems involved. So for me, the first thing that was affected, and there's no like real reason why that I know of that anyone could tell me why my digestion was affected before my lungs. I don't really know, but for me, it forces pancreatic insufficiency because now your pancreatic enzymes, which digest your food, can't get to your small intestine. So it's really hard to gain weight, which is why I look like a little baby. Um, and then for your lungs, your mucus has a pretty high water content. Everyone's does. So
Mhm.
because the salt and the chloride ions aren't in the right proportion, it makes the mucus really sticky and thick, which bacteria are like, hell yeah, that looks like a place I want to live. So you're very easily colonized by bacteria. And then when you have an infection, it's super sticky, so you can't get it out. And that causes a whole bunch of problems. Now, the fibrosis part of cystic fibrosis means scarring. So what happens to the lungs is because of those chronic infections, they become fibrotic, less elastic, less able to accommodate oxygen. So over time, what happens is your lungs become less good at their job, filled with more scar tissue, and that's usually the pathway we see people needing lung transplants.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's been a lot that, I mean, my niece is doing really well, like, and I mean, even thank kudos to your mom for continuing to advocate. I can't even imagine though, like losing your, the kids in between. So I like my heart goes out to you, your parents and you, and like but yeah, like, so what do you attribute besides like what you've done? Like, what are the things that you do to keep yourself healthy?
So I now there's a medication called Trikafta, which
Okay.
is like game changer. I kind of didn't get to the bad part of my story yet. But on the other side of the bad thing that happened to me, um, you know, first and foremost, like I know I need to prioritize my health, my nutrition. I currently they're like when you have a chronic disease, other things happen. So like I have like not the best liver, so making sure like I'm not going out and drinking all the time. Like you have to basically create a life that you can be successful in taking care of your health, which is one of the reasons I wanted to start a remote business. Um, so that I had more time to take care of myself as I got older.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think in general, just like understanding that being healthy is not like a right, it's a gift.
Hmm.
And it's something that I will always have to work for. And I have to do that with a smile on my face because I get to be here. It's not that I don't feel like I'm a victim at all. It's just,
Yeah, no, I think it's very important. It's like it's a tough conversation and it's a tough caveat because it's like getting appropriate care should be something that like it shouldn't be as hard as it is for a lot of people, right? But you like I don't think even if we have like amazing advances in like our health, like I don't think just the way the human organism is like nothing is just going to make us like healthy, right? And if there
yeah,
is something like what we'll do is it won't actually like people will just go find other ways to be unhealthy. It's like when people get really rich, it doesn't necessarily just make them happy, right? Like it makes it solving problems easier, but like look at all the dysfunction in like, people's lives when they have a lot of money. That's still dysfunctional. You still have to like do the work to like live the life you want, right? And that health is no different. So all right, I mean, what was your lowest moment? What was the deep the hard stuff?
if you're about to say really quick, I don't know if I could do it really quick.
Just go.
Um,
Yeah, I got time. So,
so around it was my first year of PT school, and this kind of plays into like the role stress and everything plays in our
yeah.
health, maybe happening in some ways we don't expect. So, like I was not taking good care of myself. Like I will own that. I wasn't doing a horrible job, but I wasn't doing what I needed to at the frequency, whatever. So I had gallstones, which gallstones are like little
Yep.
calcium deposits that happen in your liver. And I turned like yellow. And I had just been to Florida. So I was like, I am so tan. Like I am looking good. And then I go to my doctor. She's like, Kate, your freaking eyeballs are yellow. What are you talking about? I look in the mirror. I was like, oh my God, I am yellow. So go to the hospital to have the gallstones removed via endoscopy. So endoscopy is like when they stick a tube down your throat and you're asleep, obviously. But it's pretty, as far as like surgical procedures, it's pretty non-invasive. Like they don't make any new holes. They just go down the holes you have
Yeah.
and remove the stones. Now the plan was to get a cholecystectomy or like a gallbladder removal eventually, but like we got to get you not yellow first. So went in for a routine procedure. At some point in the procedure, I think when they flipped me over, because they do it in prone, this is things I've learned after the fact, I was not awake. When they flipped me over, the pressure changed, caused a vessel in my lungs to rupture. And I basically was without oxygen for anywhere between 6 to 10 minutes, which is kind of, I think it's 6 minutes because I think I'd be brain damaged. But once again, I was not awake, so it's hearsay. Now, my pediatrician was in the room. We're like very close. I love her. She's the best. And she's like, Kate, I literally have no idea how you're here. Like, you had angels in the room that day. I don't know what to tell you because, they hit the button. 22 people rush in the room. They do some like, like Grey's Anatomy, like we have to throw away the rule book. Like
I've
it
been
was,
I've been in rooms when people have coded, so I like it's freaking wild. Like, yeah.
yeah. So this cardiothoracic surgeon does this technique that isn't really done in the lung where he lavages it, finds the bleed, cauterizes it, and immediately I'm go from being like fairly healthy to like very not
Yeah.
healthy. And so I wake up and without the actual like hospital stay was like kind of crazy. There's some like funny stories, but I think, you know, I went from being this really independent, active person in my first semester of PT school, which my finals are like the next week, by the way. To like I couldn't lift my arms to like wash my hair. My mom was like washing my hair in the sink of the hospital, which is like just such a humbling experience.
Yeah.
And also, like, you feel so loved when people are able
Yeah.
to like take, so it's like not all, it's not all bad,
Yeah.
right? But then from that moment on, like I was like, I could fucking die from this. And it obviously you know that, but it never like really because it didn't touch me in that
Yeah.
way yet. And then it was just like a really, really low couple of months where, walking upstairs, throwing up blood, like my friends are like, and I'm like trying to make jokes. I'm like, it's so silly of me to do that. That's showbiz, baby. Um, but like it wasn't very cool at all, and I wasn't okay with it. And there was a lot of like mourning that I had to do through that period because I was like, I don't know if my life is ever going to be the way that I thought it was.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of maybe to a lesser degree, or the hardest thing you've gone through is the hardest thing you've gone through. So like maybe people that are going through ACL injury feel that too.
Yeah.
Depending on their life plan too. Like if you're going to college to play sports and suddenly that's not an option, like your life isn't going to be the way you thought it was.
Yeah.
And like I had to really come to terms with the fact like I might not make it back, you know, and obviously that wasn't the case. But through that dark period of my life, I gained so much insight into like what it means to haul your own sun up, if you will, through physical exercise, through, being kind to yourself and like giving yourself grace when the human body that you're in isn't cooperating with what your brain wants to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it was very life changing. Now that Trikafta has come out, like I don't even cough anymore, right? So it's like it's just I have to credit the advances in science too, because it's not all like by the
Yeah.
power of my bootstraps,
Yeah.
but it was a really tough journey, and I don't even fully understand how I got through some of that, but I did. So now we're here.
I'm looking up. I can't. I'm trying to. I think my niece takes Orkambi. Are they like the same or are they different?
Orkambi is well, it depends on her mutation. From my
Okay.
understanding, I used to be on Orkambi. It
Okay.
depends on your mutation.
Yeah.
Orkambi didn't do anything for me, but it's just not my mutation.
Yeah. And maybe she's on trifecta. What is it? Trifacta? Tricapta.
Trikafta.
Trifacta. I mean, honestly,
It's like a play on the word trifecta. You
yeah.
know how the
Yeah,
pharmaceuticals
yeah.
do it.
I mean, prescription drug names are so interesting, right? I just want to know why they like name stuff the stuff they do, right? But I mean, it is pretty phenomenal because I mean, she's been on multiple clinical trials and she still has to do her chest percussion, and take her meds like daily and like the maintenance of herself is different. But she's also like she's a normal kid, like where like yeah, I worked during PT school. We had like a work study program where like I could go do like it was like for the cystic fibrosis and pulmonary team, and I was so bad at manual chest percussions. Like my left hand did not coordinate, and I just couldn't keep it up. It was so bad. Like my friends would make fun of me because it's like, Dave, it just sounds like you're just beating on people, and I'm like,
That
because it's
kind of
supposed to,
is what it is, though.
it is what it is. But is there supposed to be like you're supposed to basically make like it
A
should be like
cupping
that
sound.
where it's
Yeah.
like that's different, right? Yeah,
Laugh
like
them around.
yeah. But I mean, like some of it's just access and like because there was kids, it's like, man, this is gonna be hard because like I just know you're not getting like the care, right? And yeah, I'm glad that you made it through, and I'm glad you learned a lot of lessons. And I think that's one of the things about humans. It's like we all like just get into our own suffering. Like, and also like humans love drama. Like I avoid like drama at all cost. But my wife's been watching this show called like Friday Night Lights, which is just like a soap opera for teenagers, but she likes that type of stuff. And I got involved in it. And like I literally like feel like feelings bubbling up and stuff that I shouldn't care about. And then there's like drama with Iowa and Caitlin Clark, like, and there's people like who are shitting on this girl who's just trying to play basketball well, and I'm like getting like emotional and like frustrated about people's opinions of stuff. I'm like, imagine if I did this all the time, right? Like how I would feel. It would probably distract me from my own BS a little bit, but it would make me like psychologically and emotionally drained, right? And
Yeah.
your story, like that's so hard. And I think it sets you up to help people going through their ACL recovery better because you've been like literally like to the pit of despair and came back, right? And
Yeah, really.
and for a lot of people, like, I mean, not being afraid that you're not. I mean, I talked to Steph Allen like a week ago, and she's like, even in like 2010, an ACL was a season. It was a career ender, right? And now
Yeah.
there's at least hope, right? And then like not being able to be with your team anymore would suck, right? Like that's such a giant thing that you don't want to have people have things taken away. And just sports in general. Like I went and played tennis last night and I'm like, gosh, I'm just grateful that like I'm still moving well. And like some of that's because I've done the work and some of it's just because I'm lucky, right? But like imagine not being able to just come out here and play. Uh and like that's the type of stuff that I think matters. And you're doing a good job of passing that on. So I've taken a lot of your time. Should we go quick speed round? Like, you ready for that?
Okay, let's do it.
What's your favorite pasta or Italian dish?
Well, my favorite pasta is I make homemade pasta now, and it's so good.
All
But I don't
right.
do that regularly. So, like cavatelli, like it's like thick and then like looped like that.
Okay. All right.
That's
Um,
not like a dish, that's a pasta shape.
gotcha. What's your favorite sport?
My favorite sport to play currently is beach volleyball.
Okay.
I would say my favorite sport in general is soccer.
Okay. If you were gonna be a superhero, who would you be?
Ant-Man.
Ooh, that's a good choice. Would you go big or would you go small?
Well,
Okay, cool.
well, actually, no. I want to be big because I've
Big.
always been small. I actually, so this is supposed to be a speed round. I physically am unable to do that. I always said in my next life, I want to come back as a whale shark so I could be the biggest bitch in the ocean and just like coast around.
Is it whale sharks? Oh, whale sharks. Whale sharks. I'm thinking of like a blue whale, right? They're like the biggest mammal is the blue whale, right?
Yeah, we're going non-mammal
You're
on
going
this one.
shark. Okay,
Pure
I got
fish.
you.
Yeah.
All right, I like it. All right. That was the end of speech round.
Okay,
That was good.
cool.
To pitch yourself. Where do people find you? Yeah, where are you at?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Helios ACL Project. That's the best way to reach me for your ACL and I don't know any other needs you might have that I should address.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Thanks so much. This was fun. I appreciate you. I'm gonna hit the end of this, so it's just gonna shut it off. But yeah, great talk. We'll do this again in the not too distant future. We'll get into some other stuff, but this was good.
Okay, cool. I'm down.
See ya. Have a great day.
Bye.
Peace.